In this video, I'm going to be doing a teardown of a rare Sony Vaio GT1. I'll be swapping out the spinning hard drive for a compact flash-based SSD solution. I'll be removing the CMOS battery and cleaning up the leakage, which unfortunately has caused a lot of damage, so I won't be able to show this running in the end. But first, some history and specs. The GT1 was released in 2000 as a Japan-only exclusive sub-notebook, notable for its large built-in camera, more like a camcorder than a webcam. Its camera has a 1/4-inch CCD with a 10x optical zoom and captures images and videos at 640 by 480 or just 0.3 megapixel. It's powered by a 600 MHz Transmeta Crusoe CPU, which basically emulates Intel x86 processors, instruction set, and generally is lower power but also lower performance. For display, it has a 6.5-inch 1024 by 768 screen powered by ATI Rage graphics. It has a base 128 megabytes built in with an additional single expansion slot. It has a 20 gigabyte IDE 2.5-inch hard drive and came pre-installed with Windows Millennium Edition. Overall weight was just under 2.5 pounds. It has a unique form factor where you can flip the screen around and hold it more like a camcorder. Today this is a pretty rare machine with only 5,000 ever having been made. So let's take a quick look around the GT1. You can see I'm missing a cover here at the top. Along the front, we have a release button for the screen latch. Along the side, we have a USB port, VGA out, 56K modem that would normally be under a rubber door, which has fallen off here, headphone microphone jack, power plug, and our PC card slot. Just our battery along the back. Along the other side, we have our iLink Firewire port, AV out, memory stick card reader. On the top, we have some function buttons that you can access when you're in camcorder mode. See our tilting camera here with a focus ring. On the bottom, we have a tripod mount. And on the memory door, there's a spot to clip in your lens cover, which mine is missing. Inside we have our standard keyboard. You notice it only has a track point, it doesn't have a track pad. Along the edge of the screen we have our optical zoom button, capture button, jog dial, and a back button. These are in easy reach when you're in camcorder mode. Let's do that now by rotating the screen. This is a pretty clever configuration. You can access the hardware buttons with your thumbs. So let's start the teardown, beginning by removing the battery. Taking a look under the memory expansion door, so mine doesn't have an additional memory, but if it did, it'd have a proprietary module that looks like this. So I'll start removing the screws. There's 4 screws marked with arrows. There's also 2 additional screws in the battery bay and 1 by the camera. I end up removing those in the end as well. Next, remove the keyboard. We do this by prying on the side and lifting the back edge towards the screen, being careful because it's connected by a ribbon cable. We need to lift the clip up, holding the ribbon in place. It's a little tricky because you don't have a lot of clearance on the one side. We then have 3 screws holding on the top cover, with one of the screws hidden underneath a warranty sticker. So here I'm deciding to take out more of the screws while it's still in somewhat of one piece, taking out the 2 screws underneath the battery. Disconnecting more of the ribbon cables, again held in by clips. After I remove this wider cable, I see there's a smaller cable underneath that I also remove. So here I'm also noticing that there's a circuit board underneath the top cover that was kind of askew, and kind of poking at it, I can see it's moving around. Doesn't really look proper. I was hoping this would be a simple fix for my GT1 not really powering on properly. Just that something had come disconnected, but ended up having more serious issues. One last little ribbon cable. This is probably for the track point and mouse buttons. So I found one more screw tucked away underneath the camera. Remove that now. So now to remove the top cover, it took a little exploration to figure this out. It starts out fairly easy, popping the clips off the front. And then I found that you need to remove the port covers on either side to reveal 2 last hidden screws. So this left port cover is mostly held on by tabs that you can access by poking through the top cover to release them. Checking the other side, the smaller cover comes off fairly easy, just with a little gentle prying. Both covers have a speaker in them with very fine wire and a tiny connector, so I just left it hanging here, not wanting to risk damaging it trying to unplug it. So now you can see with the cover off, we've revealed the hidden screw that we need for the top cover. Now removing the cover from the other side, a little bit of prying at the end, and it'll pop off. And our last hidden screw. So now flipping it over, it's only being held together by some clips along the back edge. So now I can lift the top cover away, mine still being held on by the video cable, which I'll disconnect next. So taking a closer look at that loose board that I noticed, you can see it's definitely popped off its connector. I'll reinstall it after dealing with the battery. So checking the CMOS battery, it's clear it's been leaking. I can see a lot of damage on the board. See some crystals on the back plastic there. The battery is just stuck down to the top of a chip, not in any kind of plastic compartment that might have helped limit how far it would have leaked. And here you can see as I try to unplug it, the entire connector popped right off the board. Now I'm just going to get some close-up images of the entire board. So you can see the standard procedure for cleaning up a leaking battery. Cut it down a lot. It's not too exciting and a lot of my hand in the frame. Basically soaking the area in vinegar, dabbing it with a swab, using a nylon brush. Then repeating the same process with some isopropyl alcohol. Spraying it all down with some CRC electronics cleaner. And then finally hitting it with electric air duster to help dry everything out quicker. So before the cleanup, I had taken a picture of the damaged area. I didn't realize how bad it was until I looked at this picture afterwards. In the end, reconnecting that loose board didn't really solve the issue. I'm pretty sure there's some pretty serious damage in this area still. So now reconnecting that loose board, it just pushes back down onto the connector. Next up, replacing the hard drive, and to get access to it, we have two different boards sitting over the top of it. This first one, this PC card slot, has two screws holding it down, and is pushed onto a connector on the right. So now we can start to see the drive. We need to remove the second USB board held on by a single screw and a push-on connector on the right. Disconnecting the IDE cable from the motherboard, lifting it off its connector, and then there are two screws holding the drive down. So now we can simply lift our drive out and then remove the four screws holding the rails to the drive. A little gentle prying to remove the IDE cable from the drive without damaging it. So to replace this drive, I'm going to use a 44-pin compact flash card adapter. I'm only using a 4GB card here, which is technically big enough for the factory Windows Millennium installation. Knowing that the drive could be buried in the machine and not having a lot of confidence in it, I didn't want to stick one of my bigger cards in it. Here I'm using a 3D printed caddy so that I can still use the factory drive rails. And just to be safe, I'm putting on some painter's tape to cover up all the exposed connections on the bottom. So now the overall reassembly begins, connecting the ribbon cable to the drive, reinstalling the 2 screws, and connecting the ribbon cable back to the motherboard. Next up, reconnecting the USB daughter board, pressing it onto its connector, installing it with a single screw. Next, pushing the PC card adapter onto its connector, installing with 2 screws, and noting that long metal tab on the left doesn't get a screw. We can now reinstall our top cover, making sure that none of the ribbon cables get caught under anything. Reinstalling the 2 small hidden screws in the back. Reinstalling the screw under the camera. Next, installing the port covers on either side, making sure that you don't pinch that speaker wire. So this larger cover was being a little difficult. Looking closer, it looked like the audio ports weren't quite lining up with the cutouts, so I helped a little bit with a screwdriver, and it popped into place. Reinstalling the screws under the battery. Next, to reconnect the ribbon cables, we got the 3 flat flex cables and then the video cable, making sure we don't miss this little one tucked underneath the larger one. Reinstalling our 3 top cover screws. And finally, reconnecting our keyboard, which after we connect the ribbon cable, we slot into tabs at the top and then set down. After that, we have 4 screws on the bottom, and then the reassembly is complete. So since my GT1 isn't working, I won't be able to show it off in action. Since this is a pretty rare laptop and the disassembly has never really been documented, it still should be a pretty useful guide. I'll make a follow-up video if I am able to repair this or come across another. Luckily, the factory recovery media is available on archive.org, as well as a hard drive image. So, as I'm doing the final assembly here, I'll say, but that's it. Thanks for watching.